there was also the requirement to be able to call Uniface DSPs from within existing websites. Okay, so at the moment these are batch mode only, so that you have a programmable interface to them. Okay. They offer you the ability. What they offer you within an existing website is a very simple way of communicating between client and server. Uniface is doing all the heavy lifting of packaging data and transferring it between client and server, and it's keeping that data in sync. So if you're updating the data in the client, it's remembering all that state information, and when you pass it back to the server, it's reconnecting it all, making it doing all the updates on the server and persisting it to the database for you, if that's how you choose to do it. But Uniface is handling that communication to and from. It's also protecting you from race conditions. Asynchronous environments are notoriously difficult to program in, because you end up with two functions relying on the same thing at the same time, and that's a difficult thing to get around. Uniface does a blocking to prevent multiple actions occurring on the same object at the same time. So that's a good bit of functionality in there. And scoping, which is this transfer where the information is passed from the client to the server and from the server back to the client. It offers you ability to reuse some of your server-side code from your websites, which are your existing websites rather than Uniface DSP ones. In order to use the Uniface JavaScript API from within a external website, there are some configuration things you have to do within Uniface. So, for instance, there are basically three things which you have to set to change the defaults for. You have to explain to the Uniface that it has to give it fully qualified names or fully qualified URLs for the Uniface JavaScript and CSS files which are loaded. Okay, so in order to be able to do this, there is an assignment file setting. It's in the web section of the assignment file. The WASF is the standard file which we used or we create, and that setting is $uniface underscore runtime underscore base underscore URL. Quite a catchy name. It just basically, you just give it the name, the location where Uniface will load its runtime from. Okay. That does not have to be the same server as the application server. So this also gives the ability to move your Uniface JavaScript runtime static files away from where your application is executing. Just takes a little bit of pressure off the server, so perhaps that's a useful thing. Another thing you have to do is to set up the location of where Uniface will load its DSP.js files from. These are individual files created for the DSPs themselves. If you don't set this, the standard or the default value is a relative path, so /DSP.js, but that doesn't make any sense if you are loading your website from somewhere else. So you have to give it a fully qualified name. So much like the first setting we saw, the fully qualified URL. The other thing you have to make sure you do is to tweak your security within the web.xml of Tomcat. There are rules within Tomcat by default that prevent JavaScript execution from different sources. Okay, so there is some configuration that needs to happen there. That can be very simple, making it quite open, but you can also narrow it down to quite tight rules. Okay, I would recommend if you're doing this to look up cause for Tomcat. Google it, Tomcat cause. An example, a very simple example, is here, and it's just put within. I put mine just before the final closing tag of the web.xml. Okay, and it just tells Uniface that, or it tells Tomcat that it will allow you to execute JavaScript code from different locations. This is a very open one. You might want to close it down a bit further. So once we've done our configuration, the next thing to do is to actually use it. So I have an example here on the screen where first of all we are loading our Uniface JavaScript. So we're using that external file. Source is equal to the location of the uniface.js. The standard location of that is Uniface common Uniface.js. Okay, that's within your web apps folder of your Uniface installation. Okay, but as I say, that can be moved by setting your assignment file, as in the previous step. The next thing we're doing is we're defining some JavaScript which can be used. Within there, we have to set where the Uniface web request dispatcher is, the WRD. Okay, this is the thing that does the execution of the DSPs, or accepts a request from the DSPs. Okay, so the default one is the Uniface/WRD. So that's what I have in here, but it just tells Uniface where it needs to pass the DSP execution to. And then I have a function which will create an instance, so uniface.createInstance, passing in a component name of DSP component, an instance name of my instance name, a function name or an operation name of multiply, and then a couple of parameters. When it's finished in the .then, it's just going to log the output to the console, so that's the ret object. So that'll give us all the information to the return to the console. There is also a catch here in case there's an error, so we can just log that as well. So when we want to call this function, which we called doIt, I have a button defined at the bottom there with the on-click event of doIt. So when I hit that button, it will go and run my code. Okay. So I have a small example here. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load at the top here in a script tag my Uniface JavaScript file, and then I have some script which is included in my page. So the first thing I'm doing is setting my WRD URL. I'm then doing a Uniface, doing a create instance. So I'm not passing through an operation or any parameters here. I'm just saying create instance of the component demo2 and call it demo. So that's my instance name of demo. Okay, so that's going to just be sitting inside this. It's going to start it up and leave it within my Uniface runtime environment on the browser. If I wanted to get rid of it, I think it's delete, and it would remove that DSP instance. Okay, but for here, I'm quite happy to leave it sitting there, and then I can make calls to it later on. Okay, so in my actual page, I have two buttons. I have a load and an update. The load is going to go to my okay, I've got a load. It's going to go to my server. It's going to activate. It's going to get my instance from the pool of instances within the Uniface runtime, and then I'm going to activate the load operation. It has no parameters. I could have put a profile in there or something like that, but I'm just going to call that load operation. I'm then going to, when it returns successfully, I'm going to output my occurrences. So I'm going to do that by first of all getting the instance that's been returned from the activate. I'm going to get my entity, and then I'm going to get an array of occurrences, which I'm going to pass to an output function. Okay? The output function is going to clear existing data, and then it's going to loop through all my occurrences, outputting a field. So to do that, I'm just setting an input in HTML. I'm getting the element of a div, which is called output at the bottom here. I'm clearing its contents. I'm then looping through the passed in occurrences and outputting. I'm doing a get field in each of the occurrences, getting the description, the value from the description, and outputting it into the field. So I'm setting the input in a HTML. The plus equals is just appending to the end. Okay. So as long as my IP address hasn't changed on my my Windows machine, which it hasn't, I can load my information. Okay. So I just have some test data when it comes up. Okay, some very strange test data. And I want to then interact with that test data. So I haven't shown you that yet. To interact with it, I'm getting my instance. Again, it's demo. It's from the pool of instances. I'm getting my entity. I'm getting the first occurrence. I'm getting the field description. I'm getting the. I'm then setting the value. So originally it's crooked doctor, and I'm going to set it to JavaScript API. Okay. I save that away. I reload my page. I can load. I can update, and then I can load again, and it's changed my data. So when I've done the update, once it's done the update, I'm also activating a save on the server. Okay. So by doing this, Uniface, the JavaScript API is packaging up all the data. So I'm waiting for the page to refresh again. Slowly. Okay. So I'm doing this vinst activate save operation. Vinst was got by doing the get instance at the top. Okay. In my DSP container itself, I have my entity with my fields, including description. Okay. And I have in my operations two operations, one save and one load. This is getting all my information, and the save is persisting into the database. Obviously with no error checking. Please don't follow this example. So the update is doing a save, and the reload is doing a load when it comes up. Okay. So hopefully you've seen that it's actually quite easy to use the JavaScript API, and especially to include it within an existing website, which was part of the requirement for this lecture. And somewhere in here I have my PowerPoint. Sorry. Okay. Yep. Very good. Okay. And with that actually brings us to the end. So have anybody got any questions? There seem to be.
I've been quite busy.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We like to see you busy.
Yes. So have we got any questions? Or have they all been answered?
So far I've picked them all up and answered them, I think.
Perfect.
I think the important thing to note, everybody, is if you have more questions around this, please use the forums. And we have enough people monitoring those to where we can pick those up and then we can answer them accordingly. We're also going to make this PowerPoint available on SharePoint. That should go up there quite soon. And we will also publish a recording of this. Not exactly sure when that's going to be yet, simply because we've got some other things going on, but that should be up on YouTube in the not too distant future.
Okay, well, thank you very much for attending. I hope today's been useful. As you say, we'll be having a look on the forums for any subsequent questions. So thank you and good evening.